Hello everyone, welcome to Storytime. Today's story is Norah's and Oliver's joint adventure. We'll see what happens next, right after this. Welcome back. So, last time we listened to Oliver's side of the story of what happened. Today, as you probably have noticed, it's a joint adventure. So, what's going to happen? We'll find out now. In Chapter 7. The light was blinding Oliver and Norah. The fluorescent glow left white dots in their eyes, making them unable to focus on anything. They both blinked a couple of times and reached up to shrug their eyes. A shadowed figure leant over Norah, shielding her eyes from the light. When her eyes adjusted, the grey hair and wrinkled smile of their grandma beamed down on her. Norah smiled and reached up her arms. Her grandma moved down and allowed Norah to wrap her arms around her. Norah grabbed tight. When the two parted, Norah noticed that her grandma, although smiling, had a pained look on her eyes. She shot up. Her heart beat fast. She looked around. Hey, Grandma, Norah said. What's happening? Why are we in the hospital? Her voice moved up and down. Oliver shot up and looked at his grandma. Oh, sweetie, your mother is in pain, so it's a sign that the babies will be coming soon. But she's not due for another 3 weeks, Oliver said, his heart pounding fast. Well, sometimes it happens that babies are born before they're due. Oliver started to get warm feeling all over his body. He remembered Charlie and Madison and how they had disappeared. And now they were here. He looked over to Norah and smiled. He could feel his heart beating faster and faster. Norah smiled back at him. Her heart beat fast too, and she began to wiggle in her seat before she screamed out, "Ah! This is the best news ever!" She pounced on her grandma and hugged her again. Oliver followed his sister's lead. Oh! Grandma responded to the combined pressure. Oliver and Norah laughed and the two released her. So tell me, you two. It's been a while. The twins talked to her about the past couple of months. Although Grandma lived only 3 hours away, they found it hard to take the time to see her. They told her about school, and about their friends, and about the improvements that they helped with around the house. And we finished last week. The room looks amazing, Oliver finished. Oh, that's very good, Grandma replied. Just then, Oliver's uncles and aunts and cousins entered the hospital. How long has it been? Asked their Aunt Sandy. Oh, it's been about 2 hours now, but no news yet of anything, Grandma replied. Aunt Sandy hugged Grandma and walked over to greet Oliver and Norah. The rest of the family took turns hugging them too, before settling down and talking. Norah, Oliver, and their cousins Liam, Zoe, Alex, and Maya sat together on the floor and began playing with each other. Their cousins were older than them by 5 years, but they enjoyed playing with them. Mainly because Norah and Oliver were the only set of twins in the whole family, and they enjoyed it when the twins would do their unison thing. As they played and talked with their cousins, Dad came out. He hugged Norah, and then Oliver, and then the rest of the extended family. He picked up the twins and gave everyone the news about what was happening, which put a smile on everyone's face. He gave Oliver and Norah a kiss before putting them down. I'll be out again. Behave yourself, okay? Okay, the two replied in unison, which caused their cousins to laugh. Dad came in and out a few more times, telling them the news. However, Dad just stopped coming out. Everyone was excited, as they knew that the new babies would be here soon. However, as time passed, and Dad didn't come out, the extended family started to get tired and decided to go home. "Call us with the news," they told Grandma before hugging Oliver and Norah and leaving. The two waited at the hospital with Grandma. They played and talked with her a little bit more. But as time moved forward, Norah started to get worried. She looked over at Oliver, who had the same worried expression on his face. "What's going on?" he said with his eyes. Norah looked at the clock. "It's 10 p.m. We've been here for a long time now." "But how long is long?" Oliver replied. Norah shook her head and shrugged. Oliver blinked a few more times and yawned. His eyes were getting heavy. He looked over to Norah. She was sitting still, looking at the clock. Oliver couldn't hold it anymore. He stretched out on the chairs and let himself nod off the bed. Norah looked over at Oliver and smiled. "You should go to bed too, sweetie," Grandma said. "No, I want to stay awake for this. It's late. Go to bed. That's an order." Norah looked up at her grandmother's face. There was a stern look on it. A look that told Norah that she shouldn't argue. She gave a sigh and stretched out. She closed her eyes and instantly nodded off to bed. She had a dreamless sleep, where the only things that danced in her mind were the different shapes. She was violently woken up by a moving chair. Her eyes shut open and she could manage an outline of someone talking to Grandma. She looked over to Oliver. He was already awake, looking at the two figures. She turned back to find Grandma heading back to them. She stopped at them, gave them a pressed smile. "Okay, sweeties, let's get something to eat." "What about Mum and Dad and the new twins?" Oliver yelled out. Grandma took a deep breath. "Just come for now." "But why?" Oliver asked. "Yeah, why?" Oliver echoed. Oliver could feel himself getting angry. "Come on, you two." She tried to grab their hands. Oliver and Norah quickly moved their hands away. Almost instinctively, they started running to the area where Dad would pop out. They pushed past the nurses and doctors before they were stopped. A voice that they knew but had never heard before locked their legs and floored them. The sound grabbed at their hearts and pulled them into a void. The twins looked at each other. "Dad! You two, get back here right now!" they heard their grandmother say. But before she could move any further, the howling and low hum stopped her in her tracks. Oliver turned to Norah, nodded at her, and the two of them ran to the room where the sound was coming from. They opened the door and entered it. Mum was lying in her bed. Her head was turned away from everyone. She stared blankly into the wall, silent. Dad knelt at the bedside next to Mum, his hands interlaced with hers. Though he was crying into the mattress, the sound penetrated through everything and caused ripples of sadness to flow through the room. The twins stood there, unsure of if they wanted to move any closer. "You two come here," said the voice behind them. They turned to see Grandma. Her face was white, but unable to look away from the scene in front of them. Her face was white, and she was unable to look away at the scene in front of them. Mum turned around and looked at her mother. Dad stopped crying immediately and looked too. The pain that he was holding onto himself was released into the room. This caused everyone to start to cry audibly. Tears streamed down her mother's face, and she let out a hiccuping wail. Norah and Oliver let out low hums, tears spreading all over their cheeks. A hand held onto Norah and Oliver's shoulders. Their grandma, although struggling, came in behind them and started to guide them out of the room. Mum, their mother hiccuped. Thank you, but I need them right now. She looked at Oliver and Norah. Come here. She reached out her hands and ushered them to come to her. The twins moved slowly towards their mum, still crying. Through his teary eyes, Oliver saw his dad talk to Grandma. He heard a thank you and please sit down here, which she did. Oliver watched as Norah flew off the floor and was placed near Mom. He too was sent flying before landing next to his sister. Mum wrapped her arms around their babies and squeezed them tight. As she hugged them, she didn't say a word. But the twins could hear, I love you, beat out through her heart. Something that they had never experienced that often when communicating with their mother. Norah moved up and kissed her mum, and she started kissing her all over her face. Oliver did the same thing too. They kissed her until she was smiling. Stop, she giggled. Come, lay down, she said as she stretched out her arms. Norah and Oliver laid down on Mum's arm. They both faced away from her. Mum wrapped her arms around them and pulled them in close. Oliver saw his mum raise his arm and mess up his hair. He heard her say something bad underneath her breath, but he smiled and looked at the wall. Another set of arms wrapped himself around Oliver and Norah. These arms were powerful and strong and warm. The twins felt brave at the touch, and all of a sudden, a hum filled the room before Dad decided to sing. My dear, tomorrow is almost here. So don't waste the day and let the sadness blow away. My dear, the future is drawing near. Although sadness is at the door, embrace happiness forevermore. And my dear, I'll make one thing clear. No matter what lays ahead, with our love, we'll have nothing to dread. Dad finished and continued to hum further. Norah and Oliver felt the bed shake. They realized that their mother was crying, and they started to cry too. This was not the time to hold back anything anymore and be more brave than they needed to be. They laid there, crying. After an hour, Mum stopped crying and turned. Oliver and Norah turned around and looked up to see what was happening. Thank you, Mum said to Dad. Dad replied with a simple, I love you. He kissed her, and when he broke away, added, forever. Us too, Mum, Norah chimed in. We'll stick by you forever too. Mum giggled a little. Thank you, she said as she kissed Norah and tried her best to kiss Oliver. Again, the family fell to silence. Norah started moving behind Oliver, and Oliver turned around to see that Norah was now facing Mum. He turned around to do the same thing. He watched as Norah put her arms around her Mum's tummy and gave her a big hug. He followed suit. Mum smiled again and took a deep breath. I'm sorry, babies, she said in a small voice. She was trying to hold in her sobs. Can you forgive me? I've lost what you wanted the most. They could see that she was about to cry again. Forgive you for what? Oliver replied. It's not your fault. Yeah, don't blame yourself, Mum, Norah finished. Mum let out a little laugh. How did my babies become so wise? She said with a smile on her face. You two are showing wisdom beyond your age. She gave a forced smile and took in a few deep breaths. But for a while, I'm going to be angry at myself, sad, and confused. So, I will say I'm sorry in advance. It's okay to be angry, sad, and everything that you need to feel, Dad replied to her. We'll always be here, so don't you have to worry. I know. I'll always remember. They waited a little bit more in silence before Norah moved her head down. I'm going to tell her, she whispered to him through her mind. He gave her a small squeeze. Do it. This will make them happy, I hope. Norah took a deep breath. We saw them. Her voice was small and unsure. Madison and Charlie. They were joyous and beautiful. And boy, were they funny. Norah let out a small laugh. There was silence. Oliver and his sister tilted their heads up to look at their mother's face. She was smiling too. She turned to Dad. Remember when you saw these two in your dreams? Yeah. And ever since then, we had an unspoken connection. He looked at them. Remember what you saw, he continued. It's going to lead you to something great in the future. Mum and Dad talked a little bit more about what happened before Oliver and Norah were born. They compared notes with each other to see what happened in their dreams. Grandma joined in the conversation too. After all was said and finished, they fell into silence once again. They were happy and sad, but most of all, they loved each other. Tears started to well in everyone's eyes, and Dad began to sing a lullaby once again. And that concludes part 7 of Norah and Oliver's joint adventure. Join me next week to see what happens after this. Until then, I love you. Have a good day or good night, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.